Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Advisory Health Council's Wellness Spotlight. I'm Dr. Ken Friedman, President of the Advisory Health Council. Traditionally, children and adolescents walked or bicycled to school. They participated regularly in school-based activity programs, and they performed physical chores at home that keep their bodies healthy, fit, and strong. But today, fewer children walk or ride their bicycles to school, and physical education and recess are unfortunately viewed as expendable in a lot of states across the country. Moreover, computers and video games have decreased youngsters' need to move, and there are fewer safe places for kids to play these days. As a result, physical inactivity among children and adolescents has become a major public health concern. The prevalence of childhood obesity in the United States has tripled in recent decades, and type 2 adult-onset diabetes is now being diagnosed in adolescents. If current trends continue, the health-related consequences of physical inactivity and childhood obesity will likely pose an unprecedented burden on youth, their families, and our healthcare system. The bottom line is that a sedentary lifestyle during childhood and adolescence increases the risk of developing major health problems, such as heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and osteoporosis later in life. To discuss this very important subject and what we can do to keep our children and ourselves healthier, we're very privileged to have today Dr. Avery Faigenbaum. Dr. Faigenbaum is a professor at the College of New Jersey, a tenured professor, College of New Jersey. He has a resume that I could exercise with. It's very extensive. Dr. Faigenbaum, I understand you've published 15 research, you've been granted 15 research grants. You've had a number of media appearances, over 35. You've co-authored 8 books on exercise and fitness. You've written over 130 peer-reviewed articles, have had 69 research abstracts, have had 6 fitness videos to your credit, and also have presented over 250 times nationally and internationally. You're not a typical gym teacher, are you?
Well, thanks for the invitation to join this show and talk about a very important topic.
You have a PhD in exercise and fitness,
yes,
physical education.
It's a combination of physical education and exercise science, but I refer to myself as a pediatric exercise scientist. So all of my interests focus on developing healthy fitness programs for children and adolescents.
I see. Tell me, what is the trend these days among exercise and fitness? I understand that in 2008, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released some new physical activity guidelines.
That's right. The U.S. government came out with new guidelines for adults as well as children and adolescents. And here's the bottom line. Children and adolescents need to accumulate 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity on most, if not all, days of the week. And that activity should include aerobic exercises like swimming, biking, and running, as well as muscle building exercises that help to strengthen their muscles as well as their bones. So the goal needs to be 60 minutes, but it does not need to be 60 consecutive minutes. It could be 30 minutes during the day, it could be 15 minutes after school, and maybe 15 minutes after dinner.
Now, how did they come up with these guidelines? Who determined 60 minutes was the right amount of time?
Well, they looked at thousands of research studies, and the research studies show that 30 to 45 minutes seems to work, but that's vigorous exercise. So 60 guidelines came out with the thinking that some of that might be less intense, some might be moderate, and some might be vigorous. So the idea is 60 minutes of exercise. Some might be easy, and some might be at a point where you become a little short of breath.
Now, we all know exercise can make you tired, and sometimes it makes you feel very good, almost euphoric. What are the physiological benefits of exercise?
Oh, exercise is medicine, as you know. Exercise, if all the benefits of exercise could be put into a pill, it'd be the most overly prescribed medication in the world. And this is true for you and I, and it's true for children as well. There are physical benefits. It makes their heart stronger, their muscles stronger. But with children, let's not overlook the psychosocial benefits. Reduced feelings of anxiety, reduced feelings of depression, a chance for social interaction, a chance to make friends, have fun, and learn something new. So there's lots of benefits to be associated with physical activity. I think the message is that physical activity is absolutely essential for normal growth and development.
What is it these days? Dr. Faigenbaum, I remember when I was a kid, we got out of school, we came home, and we played for most of the day, and then we went inside, had dinner, did our homework, and then maybe we went outside after dinner for a little while longer once our homework is done, and then we went to sleep.
That's right.
But it seems today that kids have a completely different lifestyle than the lifestyle that we had when we were kids. Have children changed, or has our society changed? What's going on?
That's right. If I was to ask you, what did you do when you were 10 years old? You came home after school and you played outside for 2 or 3 hours until mom called you in for dinner. Right? And that seems to be the way it was many years ago. But now it's different. Children spend 20 to 25 hours a week in front of the screen. Television, video games have seemed to replace what you and I did after school. And some people say this is an unfitness epidemic that's spreading across the country. And in part, this is contributing to the epidemic of obesity. There seems to be more children in front of televisions than at playgrounds nowadays. And I understand the concerns of parents. Unsafe playgrounds, some neighborhoods need to improve the environment. But nevertheless, there are always opportunities for children and adolescents to engage in physical activity.
Now, the kids that are engaged in physical activity, many of them are connected with teams, team sports, things like that. We hear a lot about strength training today for children especially. Tell me some of your thoughts about that.
You know, years ago there was this myth, and you know as a chiropractor, that there was this myth that would stunt their growth and fracture their growth plates, and it was contraindicated. In fact, in the 1990s, there were many organizations, including medical organizations, who said children should not lift weights. But if I was to ask you, did you do push-ups when you were 10? I think the answer is yes. And did you do sit-ups when you were 10? I think the answer is yes. So we call it strength training. Okay, so nowadays there's a compelling body of evidence that says strength training or weight-bearing physical activity is essential and safe if properly prescribed. So we need to put boys and girls on aerobic programs, what you and I did after school, as well as muscle building programs. And it could include body weight exercises or lightweight dumbbells or medicine balls, which are now part of physical education and YMCA programs. But of course, children need to do it with proper supervision.
So parents shouldn't just strap a dumbbell to the remote control and figure their kids are exercising.
That's right. You know, and children have been hurt, and the accidents tend to happen at home when mom and dad aren't around watching. My advice is this: learn how to strength train in school with a physical education teacher. Learn how to strength train at a YMCA with an instructor who really appreciates the uniqueness of children. And the key is to focus on exercise technique, not the amount of weight lifted. And I think strength training can be added to the list of activities boys and girls do, along with field hockey, football, rollerblading, gymnastics, and martial arts. I think strength training is a lifetime fitness activity. In our programs, we start at age 7 and 8.
How many hours of strength training should a child have a week?
Well, strength training should be part of a child's weekly fitness program. I'm not sure I would prescribe 2 or 3 or 4 hours. That's far too much. That might be appropriate for a college athlete. But in our programs, children strength train twice per week for 30 to 45 minutes.
I'll tell you, these days, part of a child's strength training is just carrying their backpack around on their back all day long.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a story for another day, that we need to make children stronger. So when people talk about the potential harmful effects of strength training, children strength train all day, lifting up their backpacks, participation in sport, push-ups and sit-ups. So we need just to have a smarter view of what strength training truly is.
What are some of the current trends in public education these days when it comes to physical education for children?
Well, the good news in New Jersey is that physical education is taught by certified teachers. And that's not always true across the country, where sometimes an English teacher or a social studies teacher or a science teacher teaches physical education, but they may not have the background in health and fitness. So that's the good news in New Jersey. In New Jersey, we also, for the most part, seem to be ahead of the curve, where most boys and girls are getting quality physical education on most days of the week. There's always room for improvement, okay? In my view, I'd like to see physical education in kindergarten through 12th grade every day. Here's what the teachers tell me. When children come back from physical education, the best learning takes place. So you and I have been talking about the physical benefits, we've been talking about the psychological benefits, but what about the academic benefits? The question is this: how long can a child sit in that school chair and still learn? How long can you and I sit in front of a computer and still be engaged learners? Maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, and we're adults. I think children need to have recess and physical education every day as part of the school curriculum.
Then why, in some states, are they starting to cut these programs?
Well, sadly, there's a focus only on academic performance, and I think that's short-sighted. If we have children simply learning math and English and other reading skills, I think we overlook the importance of health and fitness. And I think, as we say, the mind and the body are connected. And I think as we make the body stronger, we make the mind stronger. And what the data says is this, is that children who are physically fit tend to perform better academically. We're not sure why, but that's what the correlation data seems to suggest. Children who exercise seem to have better concentration. Children who exercise seem to be less disruptive in the classroom. And when you talk to classroom teachers, they're supportive of physical education. You know, my sense is this: if we take physical education and recess out of our schools, I think we'll see academic performance go down, and I think we'll see disruptive behavior in the classrooms increase.
There's a growing trend these days that childhood obesity is increasing, you know, partly due to the diet that children are being fed these days, and I'm sure it's also partially due to the fact that children lead a more sedentary lifestyle. What do you have to say about that?
Well, as you know, as a healthcare provider, we're in the midst of an epidemic of childhood obesity. And all we need to do is walk outside this studio to the local shopping mall or the local school, and we can see it. It's in this community, it's throughout the United States, and is now spreading worldwide. It's tripled in children and it's doubled for adolescents. And I'm not sure there's an end in sight. And as you mentioned, it's a two-pronged approach. We need to focus on what children are eating and how much exercise and physical activity they get. And in our society right now, food is everywhere. And when food advertisers win, we eat more. It's as simple as that. And food is just dense in calories. It's available in our schools. It's available at fast food places, and it's everywhere. And we combine that with a sedentary lifestyle. You know, my concern is this, because I've worked with children and adults who are overweight. When I'm talking to an overweight adult, I can talk to that overweight adult about his or her health as a motivating factor, that we need to control your hypertension or high blood pressure, we need to lower your cholesterol level, and we maybe even talk about longevity. But with children, it's quite challenging. Very few 10 and 12 and 14-year-olds are concerned about heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. They're what we call concrete thinkers. They want to have fun right now. And they're not concerned about motivational factors, which I might use as a practitioner working with an adult. So it's a challenge we have on our hands, and I think we need to improve our environment and get parents on board. And parents need to realize that this is a health crisis, because an overweight child is likely to become an overweight adult. I'm truly saddened when I walk to the shopping malls and schools and I see boys and girls who weigh 200 pounds and now 300 pounds, because I'm fully aware of the devastating consequences that await them. And I think parents need to become more proactive and work with healthcare providers and their schools to combat this problem.
Doesn't a lot of this really start at home, though? It's not just the kids themselves. Shouldn't the parents take a more active and proactive role in their own health and set an example for their kids?
Absolutely. You hit a home run with that one. Parents need to be good role models. I see boys and girls in our after-school programs for perhaps 1 hour per day. A physical education teacher sees a child for perhaps 43 minutes per day. So we need to look at what happens at home. As much as I try to focus on healthy eating and proper physical activity, mom and dad need to be role models. They need to lead an active life, and they need to make sensible food choices. I'm not saying that some ice cream and a candy bar now and then, okay? But what I am saying, we need to look at the big picture and say, what are you doing every day on most days of the week?
So if kids need about 60 minutes of exercise a day, Dr. Faigenbaum, how much exercise do most adults require?
Most adults, the guidelines now for adults say they need to accumulate 30 minutes on most days of the week. And sad to report, most adults aren't accumulating 30 minutes. And it doesn't need to be 30 consecutive minutes. It needs to be 30 minutes that have accumulated throughout the whole day. And that could be as simple as walking the dog in the morning. When you drive to work, park your car further away. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. You don't need to have a gym membership, although that's nice. You don't need a gym membership. You can have, I could put 30 minutes in your life and you wouldn't even realize it. I'm just going to accumulate that physical activity throughout the whole day.
Now, there's a couple of different types of physical activities. I think you made a distinction between skill-related physical activity and health-related physical activity. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, most often we talk about health-related physical activity. I think that's gotten the most press. Health-related physical activity is aerobic exercise like running, jogging, and swimming, or strength-building exercise like we were talking about, and flexibility exercise as well. I think they have received the most press, and perhaps that's what you and I enjoy doing, or most adults enjoy doing. It could be some aerobic exercise and strength training, plus some stretching. But I think the importance of skill-related fitness has been overlooked with children. Skill-related fitness is what I call the ABCs: agility, balance, and coordination. And these are what children perform as they play games and activities. So we can't just focus on aerobic exercise like walking and swimming and cycling. We need to focus on skill-based activities as well. Just watch children on a playground. That's a combination of health and a combination of skill. It's what I call free play.
So How important is free play these days? Because you don't really see kids having much free play these days. Everything is structured and organized. You practically need a lawyer to be able to make a play date for your kid these days.
You know, you're right. Over the past 20 years, we've seen a reduction in free play by about 25%. You know, we started off this show saying, well, you and I did after school when we came home, 2 hours of free play. But think about free play. You and I had an opportunity to make friends, learn something new, be creative, make rules for our game, perhaps engage in conflict and resolution. There's a lot of positive things that happen with free play. But free play not only helps the physical well-being of children, but also their emotional and social well-being. I think in addition to recreational sports, competitive sports, and physical education, I think the value of free play needs to be focused on. And we need to put free play back into the lives of children, starting at a very early age. Soon as children are able to walk, about age 1, we need to get back into free play activities.
How does a parent today take a child who's good academically, studies hard, but more of a couch potato, and get them more involved in physical activity and exercise?
Great question. Physical activity should not begin with competitive sport. Very often in TV shows like this, the questions are always focused on competitive sport, sports for young athletes or sports for recreational athletes. But if that child you just mentioned maybe is sedentary, maybe a little overweight but not obese, and maybe that child has a disinterest in physical activity, that child is not ready for competitive sport. Their musculoskeletal system is not prepared for sport, and they don't have the confidence in their abilities to play competitive sport. So you cannot go from the couch to the soccer field. We need something in between. But the good news is many schools in New Jersey now have fitness programs after school for boys and girls. Many YMCAs have non-competitive fitness workout programs for boys and girls. Or mom and dad can get boys and girls, their sons and daughters, involved in programs after school or on weekends. The goal is this: you need 6 to 8 weeks of physical activity prior to sport. And I've worked with kids for the past 20 years. There are some boys and girls who simply have a disinterest in competitive sport. So we need to provide opportunities for them as well.
What kind of resources are out there and available for parents these days who want to learn more about this?
Many resources are available from the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans is a good start. A parent could simply Google 2008 Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans and get the full report on things we're talking about today.
Some observers suggest today that there are, unless we have some effective interventions, that the children of today may be one of the first generations that may not outlive us.
Well, yes.
Is that true?
Isn't that a sad statistic? Yes, there are some observers who suggest that this may in fact be the first generation who died before their parents because of what we've been talking about today. This is a serious health threat for all of us, not just health providers, but parents and teachers and coaches. All of us who care about the health and well-being of children need to be concerned about what we see. When I see that overweight child, I don't think that's a cute overweight child. I'm well aware of the devastating consequences that await that child, which can include adult onset diabetes or cancer or heart disease at a very early age.
How does that happen? These conditions, which are serious conditions that most people associate, happening later on in life, when, in adulthood. How is it that a child can get adult onset diabetes from not exercising? Can you make the connection? Well,
many times when we think of these adult diseases such as diabetes or heart disease or cancer, you think of somebody in their 50s or 60s or 70s. Years ago I started my career in cardiac rehab, and I worked in a hospital with men and women who had heart attacks, and most were in their 60s or 70s. But now when I visit my students on their internships, I see some men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, but some in their 30s and 40s. See, heart disease doesn't start when you're 40. Heart disease can start when you're 5, and when you're 4, and when you're 3. So now that we see trends in obesity among 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, and now that we see high cholesterol levels in children who are 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old, and now we see a high consumption of high sugary snacks in young children, it's rather easy to see that with these risk factors for diabetes and heart disease, they're presenting themselves quite early. So if this disease takes 20 or 30 years to develop, instead of getting it when you're 60, now we're seeing it in teenagers and individuals in their 20s. Physical activity is actually the cornerstone of treatment for all the diseases we've been talking about. People might have different views on different diets, but physical activity is the absolute cornerstone of treatment, just like a medication.
Physiologically, how does exercise and physical activity help prevent these problems from occurring?
Exercise decreases the amount of fat on your body. Exercise makes your heart stronger. Exercise makes your blood vessels better. Exercise actually helps your body to use glucose, which is sugar in your blood. It's a win-win-win. There's not a medication a child can take that can do as much as exercise. You know, some physicians now are prescribing a medication to lower the cholesterol levels of children. Some are prescribing a medication to lower a blood pressure of children. Some are prescribing a medication to control diabetes. But exercise absolutely must be part of that prescription.
Now, for children who do exercise and are interested in playing sports, do you recommend preseason conditioning? And if so, what type of conditioning is best?
You know, that's an interesting question, because when you talk about preseason conditioning, with the Super Bowl coming up, most of us talk about pro athletes, right? So when you think about preseason conditioning, you think about pro athletes because that's what they do. However, when you think about children, you have to ask yourself, is this child ready for the sport? As I mentioned, physical activity should not begin with competitive sport. Participation in sports should evolve out of preparatory conditioning or preseason conditioning. Here's what the research says. If children participate in a 6-week preseason conditioning program that includes what we're talking about today, health-related fitness and skill-related fitness, including strength training to make their muscles stronger and their bones stronger, they're less likely to get injured. And if a child is less likely to get injured in football and field hockey, they're more likely to engage in that sport and have fun.
Now, a lot of athletes, or just people in general who are interested in becoming more fit, have a trial and error approach to it. You know, they start exercising or working out and they think it might be working for them until they injure themselves or they have a problem, and then they realize after it's too late that they weren't doing something that agreed with them. Is there any way that a parent or a child can know whether or not the things that they're doing are working for them instead of waiting for a problem to develop?
You know, the problem that I see is with progression. Just like adults, there are many young boys and girls who simply are doing too much too soon. We call this training errors in the field of pediatric exercise science. And that's how most of the injuries occur. Perhaps in adults, but we know that happens in children. They simply do too much too soon. We have this 10% rule in our program that you improve no more than 10% per week. That could be the miles that you run or the weight that you lift. It's a gradual progression. And when we have that 10% rule, we see that children make continual gains over time and feel good about their progress.
I'm curious, with what you know, Dr. Faigenbaum, what society do you feel is the stellar example that we should aspire to? Is there a country around the world today that has very healthy, fit children that exercise on a regular basis and live the kind of lifestyle that you should see our children living?
Well, there are other countries throughout the world where trends in obesity are less, but those children walk 4 to 5 miles to school every day, okay? And there are other dire consequences in terms of their health care where we are doing a better job than them. So it's hard to say there's a country out there that actually is doing better than us. But as I think about that question, I think that we have the greatest health care system in the world, and we have access to some of the best health care in the world. We just need to fix this unfitness epidemic that is going across our country. You know, I like to think that American boys and girls could be the fittest and the strongest of anybody, but we have this problem of unfitness and this problem of obesity that has really grabbed us and has gotten the attention of anybody. So it seems that what has happened in the United States is truly spreading worldwide. So it's hard to say there's a country out there right now where I can say this country has the fittest, strongest, healthiest kids out there, because what's happening in the United States has unfortunately spread worldwide.
Do you think with President Obama being elected that there will be a change in public consciousness around the country? Do you know on a federal level if there are any changes that you expect to trickle down as a result of this new administration? And if so, what would they be? I'm
hearing conversations that there's going to be a greater focus on the quality of physical education in our schools, the quality of after-school programs for boys and girls, particularly those most in need. I'm hearing there may be a focus on access to health care at a very early age. And maybe we can start to focus on prevention. And I think we need to focus on prevention instead of waiting for that problem to happen, because I think when that 20-year-old gets diagnosed with adult onset diabetes, I think it's too late. I think we need to start at age 5 or 4 or even 3. So in my own research, At first, I started with high school kids, and then middle school, and then elementary school, and recently, just this year, we're doing work with preschool children. See, my view is this: it's easier to keep a healthy child healthy than to try to combat childhood obesity when that child is 15, 16, 17 years old. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work, a team approach, and a huge effort from the parents. So my sense is this: let's start early, let's start young, and teach boys and girls how to lead a healthy life.
When is the earliest point that a parent should look into getting a child into this type of fitness and exercise as part of a healthier lifestyle for people who may have newborn babies or very young children that haven't started walking yet? When would be the right time to do that?
Well, most children start walking around age 1, but as soon as that child starts to walk, habitual physical activity should be part of their life. I think we need to get kids out of the bouncy seats. We need to get them out of the cribs and crawling and tumbling and moving at a very early age.
Oh, yeah.
And then around age 3 to 5, it might be some play and free time activities. And then 7, 8, and 9, they can start to participate in recreational sports and some of the fitness programs as you and I would talk about. Don't wait till age 7. As soon as they can start to walk, that's when physical activity should be part of their life.
Thank you. You know, you've said a lot of great things, Dr. Faigenbaum, and for our viewers, if you could wrap things up with 2 or 3 key points that you think our viewers could learn that would help them not only stay healthier themselves, but also raise healthier children, what would those things be that you'd like them to focus on?
Here's one key point. Exercise is medicine. If you've listened to this show, I want you to think that exercise is medicine. And if the benefits of exercise, the physical benefits, the psychological benefits, the emotional benefits, and the cognitive benefits, that is, it can maybe enhance my academic performance, if all of those benefits could be put into a pill, it'd be the most overly prescribed medication in the world. And the beauty of exercise, it's free. You don't have to go to a fancy gym. You don't need fancy warm-up clothes. It's free. We need, adults, you and I need 30 minutes. Children need 60 minutes, and this absolutely must be a priority.
Dr. Faigenbaum, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I know it was quite a ride for you to come down to be here today with us. We really appreciate you taking the time out from your very hectic schedule to be able to share your knowledge with us today.
Thank you very much, and you're a wonderful host.
Thank you. So that concludes another segment of the Wellness Spotlight. I'm Dr. Ken Friedman, President of the Advisory Health Council, reminding you that wellness works if you work it.